Welcome to today's episode. Before we get started, I just want to give you a quick heads up that we did do some light editing in the beginning of the podcast. So if you hear some transitions that don't sound fully clear, it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with your podcast player. We just wanted to make sure we cut out everything that didn't need to be there so we can stay as potent as possible and the episode could be as effective as possible and help you guys succeed. Enjoy the episode. Mindset is fluffy. It doesn't really work. It leaves me with a bit of an emotional high that fades after a while, whether that's through actually doing programs or going through some conferences and talking about it. And I just don't think it really works. So this is something that I ran up against a lot. I was going to a conference this past weekend. I also gave a talk there before the conference. I organized my own event. There were a lot of people showed up. And people were really surprised when I actually showed a framework of how we actually run the arena. I remember, Emil, you actually were surprised as well in Mexico when I showed it to you, I think 2 years ago. And I want to talk about that because there's a lot of mindset programs out there that are complete bullshit, in my opinion. And we're going to explain what I mean by bullshit and explain what you have to do in order to basically have a gauge to say if this is something that's going to help you in life or if it's a bullshit program. Because there are a lot of bullshit programs out there, but we want to give you guys now the tools to make sure that you're not going to fall prey to that. And also, honestly, I hope I will shatter a lot of people's belief out there that mindset has to be fluffy or it's just like short-term and doesn't really create long-lasting results. So with that said, welcome, Emil. Let's get started today, man.
Thanks for having me. Let's do this.
All right. So do you have anything to say at the top of it after what I just kind of gave an overview of?
This is a perfect podcast at this point because this is a very important thing.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear your perspective on it as well. But before we go into like good, bad, or whatever, I want to define it. I'm not a fan of just saying good or bad. I want to say effective or not effective. So we can understand what we're really talking about here and define that. So here's what I mean as far as ineffective. It is not effective if it just gives you an emotional high that just it comes on, you're super motivated, but then it fades. And it's also not effective if that only lasts during the container itself. So let's say when people go to a yoga retreat, they feel really great about themselves, everything's really aligned, it's amazing, but then they go back to their real world and none of it lasts. Those things are not effective for your mindset, for your sense of self, whatever it may be. When we're saying effective, we're saying it creates long-term results that last. It creates results. This is a big thing, results. It doesn't just make you feel a certain way. It makes you feel a certain way internally, but that also creates external results. And both of these things last. When you have that, that means it's a good mindset program. If you don't have that, where it's just a motivational high that fades, or you just kind of sit there and talk about your feelings, you feel a bit better while you're in it, but then that fades as well, ineffective. And we're going to get into why I think, honestly, a lot of people are able to get away with pulling off these ineffective things. Some people are going to get a little upset at me, I think, for this, but I think it's really important to talk about. I mean, I see it. You're just about to say something.
The effective bit is important because, and for something to be effective, it has to have a benchmark. So what does effective mean? It means that I have a point of reference and this is effective or useful for getting me to that point of reference. And that is in contrast to, good, which is vague. An emotional high. I feel warm and fuzzy inside. And that's what you can sell. Warm and fuzzy is a sell. People love it. They're like, I felt so good during that, whatever it was. But as you said, if you do not get a quantitative, something that you can measure improvement in your life, you've been shortchanged. You've been, yeah, exactly. So warm and fuzzy is not justification. There needs to be something measurable that your life gets better.
Yeah. And this is an interesting thing. I'm going to give an example. It's kind of, I think it'll bring it down to earth for a lot of people. So we had a sales call with a consultant we were trying to bring into the business to help us out. And the sales call was 10, 15 minutes. And as soon as we hung up, I was like, nope, wrong person. And my wife, who's the second in command of the business, she was like, why? They're more concerned about making us happy than creating a result that we might not understand or agree with, but that result will make us happy in the long term. And I can see that right away. You're smiling because I'm sure you've experienced this as well. And it's a lot of the programs out there, they're the same thing. Sorry, just to say this, a lot of the programs out there are the same thing. They're focused on making you feel good in the program. They're not focused on making you confront certain things that you might not want to confront, but they'll be really good for you in the long term. Go ahead.
Itamar cares more about you achieving your results than about you liking him. In the most, caring and compassionate way. that goes in front.
Yeah.
And that's what gets you the results, because a lot of programs out there, they want you to like them. They want you to be happy. And then they put that, and it's putting the cart before the horse. They want you to feel good, so then you refer it. But actually results causes the referrals.
Yeah.
But they miss that. They're too afraid to be rejected.
Yeah. I'll say this like in a different manner. Like, first off, I agree. Like, I care about people's results more. Like, it's not me. It's the way the program is structured. But I think it's because we care more about the truth. It's like we want people to understand the truth of what's actually going on inside their heads and inside them, so they can take action. We don't want to trade it around and create like a mirage around it so they can feel good.
Some people don't like the truth.
Programs do. Exactly. And that's why I always say this program is not for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm very clear about that. We are not trying to help change everybody in the world. That is very clear. It's like those people who want to know the truth but are frustrated because they're like, I've tried doing these things. And then I just get like motivated. It works a little bit. And then when I'm out of that container, it drops. Or they're saying like, I want to also understand the truth of my emotions and my feelings, but it's like, it always feels so woo-woo and vague. And it's like without a purpose or a goal. And that also doesn't work for me. So like what I would love to do in this podcast is to dispel that. Say like, if you do seek the truth and you want long-term results, here are some things that you can do to give you that opportunity. These are the things you should absolutely watch out for. And also like I'm going to say some things later on, but like, what are the big things to be aware of? Like, these are signs that this is a bullshit program that you're about to enter, or like the person you're working with, they don't really know their stuff. But because they're in a mindset is like relatively vague these days, people don't know how to clearly define it. Because of that, a lot of people can get away with nonsense in it. So we're going to try to dispel that a bit. I just want to talk about the principles of what creates a good mindset program that creates, again, creates long-lasting results that have both an internal thing, like where you can feel better about life and you enjoy it more, and also creates external results. And again, this stuff lasts results. Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right. So first thing that I really want to bring up, like, your external success is a downstream effect of who you are internally. That is the fact. Like, unless you win the lotto or have some, black swan event, 99.9% of the times, that is what happens. Your external success is a downstream effect of who you are internally. So the deeper you make the change internally, the more impactful it will have on your long-term external success. The bigger of an impact it will have. And what we were saying earlier, that a lot of these programs, they only go an inch deep and just make you feel really good. It's like they're not actually changing something internally. They're just adding something, like positive feelings. Everybody's smiling. Everybody's happy. Everybody feels real aligned, whatever it may be. But like, it doesn't create the internal change that is going to be necessary. Like, if you could think about it like as a thing of depth, like if you go only an inch deep, it's only going to last like, let's say like one amount of time, one time, whatever you want to call it. If you go a whole mile deep, that's going to last a lot longer. And it's like, you see it in business. They always talk about, you don't want to solve a problem that will arise again in 3 weeks in a different way. You want to be solving 3 months problem, 3 years problem. If you solve the root of this, it's like you won't see it again for another 3 years. And I think most mindset programs don't do that. And there's kind of, in my opinion, there's two big schools of mindset programs. There's one, like the really like harden up, motivated, like all that kind of jazz, how to be tougher. And then there's also the school of like, let's talk about the soft stuff more. Let's talk about our feelings and our emotions. And those are the two big schools. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Broadly.
Great. So I think the ones that talk about the emotions, they try to kind of go deep, but they don't really know how to do it. Most of them, because they're just kind of sitting there with their emotions. There's no real process to it. And it kind of feels really good to vent for a lot of people and just to kind of share and people be like, oh yeah, I see you, and for people to be seen. And there's value in that. It's similar to therapy, as you always talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's not with a specific end goal of like, let's uproot this, let's resolve this because we want to take action. And that is the big thing, because we actually want to take a certain action in our life, not just feel a bit better about this in the moment. And the motivational schools, sorry, I'm just going to finish this up. And the motivational schools, like, they don't even talk about that stuff. They're not saying, let's work on the inside, let's go deep. They're just saying, let's create something on top of that, a lot of motivation, a lot of toughness or whatever. So hopefully, like, that's not an issue anymore. You can combat, you can have so much motivation and drive that it'll overcome whatever internal stuff that you have. And like, you're just like fighting a battle. Instead of creating a more efficient ecosystem and like inside yourself, you're just trying to crank up the volume. So it's like that analogy I always say, instead of putting down the handbrakes, you're just trying to press harder on the gas pedal and hoping that it'll last. And it's just not a smart long-term solution in my eyes.
Yeah. I'm a fan of therapy. I've had therapy myself, and it's been very, very powerful. The difference that I've always seen is that it doesn't there's no action necessarily. It's not about taking affirmative action to excel at life. It's about, as you say, being seen, being heard, bringing awareness to things which happened in the past, which is very, very valuable, and how they affect the current. But often that is the end of its kind of remit. It can't really go beyond that. I mean, with my therapist, I pushed. I was like, I want some outcomes. I want some goals. And fair play to her. She was like, that's not really the point of therapy, but okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I need this quantitative improvement to my life. Otherwise, I'm just paying you money to talk. The other point you say about going an inch versus going a mile. Going a mile is uncomfortable. Yep. It's hard. And from a purely, marketing perspective, bringing people in, having them pay you money to be uncomfortable and to be like, oh, this is really hard, isn't the best marketing strategy, right? So people just go a little bit to make them feel like something's happening, to make them feel good, but not bad, not rough, and then all right, now you have a business. So I think that's the value in it, because discomfort and growth and going deep is hard.
Yeah. It's this weird cliche, like everybody knows they should be in their growth zone, but nobody understands like your growth zone literally means you're not in your comfort zone. So it's going to be uncomfortable. It's like it literally just means that. Yeah. And I think that kind of going back to that example I shared about the consultant, it's like, I think it's a great litmus test. If you feel like the program you're about to enter, the person you're about to work with, whatever it may be, they care about you being happy with them, that is a bad sign, because you're not going to want to have uncomfortable conversations with you that you're probably going to need to have to resolve some deeper issues. They're not going to say like, hey man, this is going to be very uncomfortable, but this is what we need to talk about right now. I think you're afraid. I think you know that you need to fire this person, but you're intimidated by them and you're not confident enough in yourself. You'll be able to bring someone else on. And that's why you're running away from this. Or like a conversation I had with one of my one-on-one clients who have been working with a while. His business is doing amazing and all this. And I was like, we're going to have a tough conversation today. And he was like, okay. And I was like, you're setting a bad example for your daughter, for the kind of man she's going to grow up and like be with. Is that what you want? And it was a very uncomfortable conversation, but he was very grateful we had it, because it was something that he wasn't able to see from the outside, how he was living stuff. And he's like doing great and all that, but like, I know he wouldn't have wanted his daughter to be with a man like how he was being in some ways. And him being able to see from that perspective, like, I don't think most people would say it. And he said that to me literally at the end of it. Like, no one says that to me, man. And I appreciate you putting this on. And I think it's a big litmus test. Like, if the goal of the program, or the person you're working with, is they want you to be happy with them, that's not a long-term thought. They need to care about your success more than they care about your relationship between you and them. Like, honestly, if people leave the arena and they're upset at me, and this has actually happened. I think when we were in Mexico in that talk that we spoke about earlier, one of the guys there came to me, and I stopped working with him a year ago, and we had a bit of a rocky like ending to it. And you remember when we all had like dinner afterwards with the taco place, and he was like, Itamar, I just want to say this in front of everybody. Like, I really appreciate you having that talk with me back then. I know like we butted heads, but like after a month or two, it really sunk in. And now like you literally think he said like he's working only 4 days a week now, tripled his income, all this kind of jazz. But on top of it, he's like, I have a much better relationship with my father now. And I appreciate that. Like, if the person you're working with, or if the program you're in doesn't encourage those kind of things, where you can see some people get upset during the program because they're getting poked in a way they need to get poked, that's a problem. Now, obviously, that's not an excuse for the person who's leading the program to do it in a way that doesn't have a lot of empathy and doesn't have a lot of compassion in it as well. Because the point of the program is to get people results. It's not just to like put something in their face, but it's to help them confront it and overcome it. And that's really important. Does this all make sense so far?
Yeah. And, in that last example, you mentioned, I think, 4 measurable outcomes that guy achieved, tripled income, working less, better relationship with father. These are all real benefits. And that's because you went a mile deep and you valued his growth over him liking you in the short term. And now he's eternally grateful. Yeah.
And like, it's like, to be honest as well, it's sometimes even valuing the truth more than his growth. Because like for me, that situation, like to be completely transparent, I was like, this is the truth of what we need to confront. Like somebody who sees like the high level picture here, as like as a coach, someone's actually supposed to see the field. It's like, this is the truth of what we need to talk about right now. And like for me, a lot of times that has been a better lighthouse, so to speak, than someone's growth, because the truth will reveal like growth. And I just understood like this is the actual constraint of what's going on. This is what we need to talk about. Like we can't do anything else until we talk about this, because this is the truth of the matter. Now, this truth, if we look at it and we actually address it, that's what's going to help you grow. But again, like I think truth above everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're smiling. Why is that?
I'm smiling because radical honesty above and beyond just being honest, but going out of your way to be honest is one of my values at the moment. And when we talk about values, I mean arena style values, which are my things I want to improve and work on. I've literally written it on my whiteboard here, 1.5 meters away. I wrote it an hour ago.
Yeah.
So yeah. Truth above everything.
Yeah. But again, like it's how you're saying like tough love. You said that at the beginning of the episode. The way I look at tough love is that like I don't truth above everything with an asterisk on it. Like I don't tell people the truth that I don't really care about. And here's what I mean by that. Like if I don't care enough about you to like really to want to see you succeed, I'm not going to tell you the truth, because I recognize that like in an honest level, I might say something that you don't want to accept, that won't land well. And I'm not going to honestly make the effort if I don't care. Like if I think you're someone who lacks certain values that I share or certain ethics or whatever it may be, it's like I can steamroll people because I can see what's going on with them, but that doesn't do anyone any favors. But if I can say, you know what, I actually really care about this person, so I'm going to be tough on them because I love them more than I love the relationship between us right now. I care about their long-term success more than I care about us being comfortable right now, and more about their opinion about me. And I think that's when you can know, like, should I be truthful with someone? It's like, can I give them tough love and be tough with them, but from a place where I actually love them, and I have care for them, and not just like truth to everyone, because that's just how I roll. And I think that's where people can get confused, and people sometimes act like assholes. Like, part of my language, I think that's what it is, because they're not saying like I'm actually wanting to help this person. I just want to like tell them the truth of what they need to hear. It's like that's not doing anyone any help.
No, I feel that's an ego thing. That's a
yes.
I want to feel like I'm bigger than this person by spitting truth and like putting them in their place. And it's not thinking of them first; it's thinking of yourself first and how you come across and how your image, whatever it is.
Yeah. Cool. So I want to move on, and I want to say why. So first off, like I think we covered the fact that the motivational stuff, I'm just like, I don't think it works, because it only goes like an inch deep, if that. It doesn't even go usually. It just like try to pour motivation on top of whatever's going on there, and then that fades. I do want to talk about, though, a big thing why I think most entrepreneurs, especially the A-types, still go for the motivational stuff, like the go harder, all that kind of jazz, instead of diving into the emotional part. I think the people that are doing the motivational go harder stuff, they're usually externally more successful than the guys that are doing the emotional woo-woo stuff. And because of that, we say, okay, like this makes more sense for me because this is what I want. What this person has, this is what I want. Now, the problem is that the emotional woo-woo stuff, in my opinion, like not emotional woo-woo, but understanding your emotions and your beliefs and why you have certain fears and insecurities, being able to resolve that is the most effective thing. Now, the problem is that most people that talk about this, because it's such a vague thing, they can get away with a lot of bullshit. There's no litmus test, especially because, like how you said, there's no end result that we're really trying to achieve here. So because of that, like anybody can say, oh, like let's talk about our feelings. And because we share our feelings, like, oh, it feels better. I released that. I was hurt. And because of that, there's a saturation in the market of anybody who wants to like talk about their feelings, have a crystal behind them, color their hair green or whatever it may be. And they can say like, oh, I'm an expert about talking about emotions. It's true. You're laughing because you've seen this. It's like that gives you expert status. If you have some crystals, a little gong, and you can color your hair green or purple, all of a sudden you know something about emotions and you can guide people. And I think that's why so many, and like it frustrates me, it really does, because I think that's why so many people who are so driven and want to excel in like life, both like an internal level and like let's call it like a family value, a personal values, and business, don't address this because they're seeing these kind of people and they're like, I want no part of that. And I think that's a big thing to recognize. Like just because most people that do this are woo-woo and they're getting away with a lot of nonsense, it does not mean that this whole thing is nonsense. Just because like A equals B doesn't mean that all B's are A. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I jump in just with
Please.
a thought there? So the other reason why A-type entrepreneurs love motivation is because often their initial driver to get into business is high motivation, and that might be to escape something, that might be to prove someone wrong, that might be to buy a Lamborghini, whatever the hell it is. So they operate by jacking up motivation, and then that works as long as it works. And then when it stops working, and this is exactly what happened to me, suddenly the wind is out of your sails and you're like, why aren't I functioning? Why aren't I operating? Why don't I feel fulfilled? So what we try and do, what I tried to do, is jack up motivation, take more stimulants, do these courses, whatever it is, set bigger goals. And maybe that will work. Maybe even I will reach my goal. There will still be an empty pit of pain inside because I never addressed the woo-woo, the core feelings, the fears, the reasons that I'm smashing motivation. And this is an analogy you use all the time, is instead of trying to continually jack up motivation, which naturally fluctuates up and down, take the handbrake off, remove the core fear, remove what's blocking you, and then you will continue to make progress even when motivation naturally fluctuates up and down.
Yeah. So to kind of like encapsulate that, I talk a lot about we call it the motivation fallacy. The thing is, like how Emil was saying, when we start, we're all super motivated because we have to be motivated. We have to make a certain amount of money, pay payroll, whatever it may be. And then we get to this point where like things are good enough, and all of a sudden we hit this level of like procrastination. People feel like they've plateaued, whatever it may be. And a big part of that is because like the level of internal resistance you had all of a sudden is equal to the level of motivation because that motivation faded. So most people try to do that instead of like really working on the internal resistance they're fading, they're trying to up the motivation. And for some people it's stimulants, for some people it's bigger goals, for some people it's like motivational videos, for some people it's actually going to like these emotional healing retreats or whatever it may be. All these kind of things. Getting realigned with their why, all that jazz. And like the reality is like those things usually just have like a short-lived impact and then they fade. And what Emil is suggesting is like saying, you said it interesting, you said it in a different way. Like it's still, even if you reach your goals, you're going to still have like a wound there. It's still going to not be fun. You're still going to be uncomfortable. Like, honestly, that's all true. I also look at it from a more pragmatic perspective. It's like, you're just operating with a lot of there's a lot of internal drag. It's like, it's a very inefficient system. If you're trying to like override a lot of internal resistance, instead of saying like, you know what, let's just create less internal resistance. And then we have to create less drive.
Yeah.
Like that, there's a quote I love by Colin Chapman. He was the founder of the F1 Lotus team. And I think it said something like, to add lightness, add speed. Power makes you faster on the straights. Lightness makes you faster everywhere. And it's just that. Like if you can create a lighter internal like system for yourself, operating place, it's just easier to go and achieve whatever you want to achieve. It also feels much better internally, like we said. And you also get long-term results. That way you know that it actually works. Now, I think also, to kind of go back to what I was saying, I think the reason that not enough people are calling out all the nonsense going on in the emotional aspect of like why people don't address this is because it's kind of taboo. Because it's people's emotions and people are very sensitive, and it's taboo to say this is a poor process. This doesn't actually get people results. Because then someone can always jump and say, well, you know what, it made me feel better. And I don't think you're being sensitive. And I don't think this, and I don't think that. But the reality is, like, most of these things, they don't even have a process. Forget about a poor process. It's not even a process. There's no systematic way to say, like, okay, if this is where you're trying to get to in life, this is what you want both internally and externally, this is what needs to happen. And these are the things you got to let go of, your fears, your insecurities, your doubts. And this is how you do that step by step. This is exactly how you do that. It's not just like, oh, just be aware of these things, say hi to them when you see them, and then like, okay. But actually, like, systematically overcome them. I think because of that, so many people are deterred from it. And like, it really frustrates me because in that conference that I was at, like, so many people came up to me and they were like, oh, we didn't know this was a thing. We thought mindset was just something like we have to give up on. Because I tried it. I know I have issues. I know that like I know what to do and I know how to do it, but I'm not doing it. But I just thought like, man, I don't want to invest again like my time, my energy, my effort, whatever it may be, into something that's going to give me a momentary up, but it's not going to last and it's going to fade. And like, it really bothers me because I just think it's like, I was very fortunate that we talked about therapy, that like the only therapist that I've ever worked with, he was the head of psychology of the Mossad. So he wasn't really a therapist. His goal was to get agents to perform really well in the field for prolonged periods of time by using psychology. There was a very clear end goal to what he was doing. It was an operational necessity. And so like I was able to adopt some of his methodologies and change them a little bit and so on, but it's like most people don't know that that's how it's supposed to be. In my opinion, like how it's supposed to be. Like if you want to really live a great life, get results, it is a tool. And you have to know how to employ that tool. This all makes sense because I know I've been in a bit of a rant now.
No. This is great. The problem with setting a goal with the emotional stuff is that then you put your program against the benchmark and you risk failure, right? So you said a lot of these
What do
people
you mean by that?
are. So I mean, like by setting a goal, there's a chance of not reaching it.
Yeah.
Right. And if you, as you say, a lot of these people who do the woo woo emotional stuff, they have no idea what they're doing. They're just making people feel good. And as long as there's no measure, they can claim success. As soon as you put a measure, they risk being outed as frauds. So then they say, oh, we don't need goals. This isn't about goals. This is about alignment and whatever other soft stuff, because it shields them. Whereas as soon as you say, but this is your goal, you've set it, now we're going to achieve it, you're putting yourself out there. And you're putting your process out there to say, my process will help you achieve this.
Well, I think it can help you achieve both. That's the thing.
No,
like it can help you. You know what I mean? That's but like putting it on the line. It's not just like, oh, we're just going to keep it on soft, so there's no measuring stick. It's like
it's putting it on the line.
Let's do both. Let's make you feel better internally. Let's also get you external results.
And you say both. It's both, and they're the same thing as well, right? As you say, the external comes from downstream from the internal. And as we said earlier, the biggest danger is that you hit your goal, the external, even with the handbrake on, because then you think even more that the process works. It's bad. It's not good that you hit your goal, because then you think, well, I need to keep doing this to get rid of the feeling, the internal.
So let's talk about that. Like I said, hitting your goal. Like let's use a different word here. You won't achieve success, true success, in my eyes, because even if you hit your external goal, inside,
agreed,
you won't be happy.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Usually also because, but beyond that, but because you had so much, let's call it like internal drag, because you were fighting all this resistance, that had to come out somewhere in your life.
Yeah.
I have not seen people like hit a goal, like let's say a big financial goal, when I can also see in them there's a lot of internal friction, but they also have a great family life, great health.
Yeah.
Because that friction had to be vented somewhere. Yeah. It could be into food, it could be into whatever it may be. So it's like success, when you think about just like external goal, but a success on a whole level, I don't think it can be achieved. Like again, like my definition of success, where you can have like, great health, great family life, great relationships, great friendships, and great business success. That I haven't seen people do where there's a lot of internal friction in them. Because like even if they achieve one of those things, there's so much friction in it that it's got to get vented out somewhere.
It's impossible. I would go a step further and say it's not possible to achieve success by that definition if there's a lot of baggage. And when I say goal, I mean the kind of super arbitrary, I want to make X amount of money that people often do in business scenarios, and which is what I did to try and reach fulfillment, whatever the bullshit. And then people, when they set that goal, and then they set like maybe as a tertiary goal, which is an afterthought, I want to be happy. But there's no definition or breakdown. Like they break down their money goal into like segments and months and years and everything, quarters. But the happiness goal, they're like, and I want to be happy and have good relationships. And they don't even think about it. Both are required, 100%.
Yeah. And I think even like the order of them is like, so what we do in the arena, we first get people really clear on how they want to feel in life. And again, most of these people are like hyper ambitious individuals. So one of the things they want to feel is really accomplished, because that'll give them peace, and that peace can create happiness, and so on and so on. So realize one of these things is external goals that you want to achieve. That'll make you feel really accomplished. Great. But they're kind of looking at it from both facets. Like, how do I want to feel? And then what should I do in order to gain that feeling? Not from a place of like what I feel compelled to do because others tell me, but what would be really cool for me to do? And then in life, I can say, wow, this was really cool. I'm happy about myself. I'm proud, content, whatever it may be. So I think it's time to wrap this one up. Do you have any parting thoughts about this, Emil?
No, I mean, so to summarize, it's important to have a goal or a benchmark. And by that, we mean there needs to be a measurable quantitative improvement to your life after doing a program. If there isn't, maybe you've been had. Maybe that wasn't the program for you.
Yeah. I'll go a step further, a bit more, let's poke some stuff. So like these are ways to know if it's a bad program, if it's not actually going to serve you. Like Emil was saying, if it focuses on making you feel better instead of resolving something on a long-term basis that will create also tangible results, that's one. if all the results you see, let's say like case studies or whatever it may be from this program, everyone's like, during the program, I felt so amazing, but nobody talks about what happened afterwards. That's a sign. Again, like their whole focus is making people feel better, not about helping them confront sometimes uncomfortable truths that they need to confront in order to really improve their life on a long-term basis. And like, honestly, from my perspective, I have not seen this. Maybe this exists. I have not seen someone with colored hair yet, or with a ton of crystals in their background, and Emil is frustrated because I'm saying the truth. I have not seen this yet. It might exist, but I have not seen someone like that also have a really great program that's really structured, that's really like properly and systematically like formatted to create results. I have not seen that. And I think if someone's training too much of like an external facade around what they're doing, instead of just getting to the truth and to the point of the matter, I would watch out for it. And again, like the whole point of this podcast is just like, mindset isn't fluffy. It's not about momentary like ups and downs. It's about creating an internal environment where you can have long-lasting success and results by removing the internal handbrake and really focusing on that in a systematic way. If someone only focuses on that, but they're not doing it in a systematic way, but just like, oh, we're just going to talk about your feelings, that doesn't work. And I hope this helps some people out there, because I know this was a big issue in the conference, and like it was sad for me to hear this, that so many people just like were like, oh, I didn't know that was the truth. I kind of just accepted that. I know what to do. I know how to do it, but I'm just not going to get myself to do it, because that's just how this stuff is. It doesn't work. So I hope this podcast was helpful for some people. I'm sorry for those I offended. Like, not really, but I'm supposed to say that apparently from Emil's look.
but no, to just you know, if you sense that there is a fluffiness, or that there are bells and whistles, distractions, gimmicks, then that's potentially a red flag.
Yeah.
And then just my last final kind of words: if you know and you don't do, then you don't know. So if you say, I know how to fix my mindset, but you're not doing it and you're not getting measurable results, you don't know how to fix your mindset. Doesn't matter if you read the book, you don't know.
Yeah. Yep. I think Emil said it very well. Like, less art, more matter. That's what a good mindset program is all about. And on that note, we will leave you guys today. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Emotional Fortitude podcast. Please tell a friend if you enjoyed it and found value in it. 3 last things before you go, though. If you feel like someone else with your exact skill set and abilities could be accomplishing more than you currently are, that's a mindset and emotional access issue. And here are 3 ways I'd love to help you conquer any internal limitations, go big, and win. 1, 3 Quick Ideas Tuesday newsletter. It's a weekly email with 3 quick ideas around one aspect of elite performance and how to approach it differently to get better and faster results. People say it's the most thought-provoking and impactful 2 minutes they spend in their inbox each week. It's easy to sign up to and easy to cancel, and you can sign up at itamarryan.com/3ideas. 2 is the Emotional Fortitude micro course. It will help you build the emotional fortitude and confidently tackle any goal. It's the complete, nothing held back emotional fortitude system in 5 simple parts. It's all under 5 minutes each module. See it, use it, and win. And it's completely free at itamarryan.com/course. And number 3, lastly, if you want to dive in and aggressively level up, the Arena Mindset Accelerator might be for you. It's a 6-week intense sprint for entrepreneurs who are up for a dramatic transformation. It's an interactive live program where you'll be working with me in a very hands-on way to get clarity on what you want, build an effective mindset to optimize for your goals, and establish elite emotional fortitude that would allow you to overcome any fear or doubt that could get in your way. You can learn more at itamarryan.com/accelerator. You can find all of these links in the show notes below, or go to itamarryan.com and have a look around. Until next time, who dares wins.